Do you love tea? Do you also love to snack? Then you might just love afternoon tea, a quintessentially British tradition that is beloved around the world. But have you ever wondered why we take tea in the afternoon in the first place? Why do we have this ritual where we stop for a spot of tea and cake in the middle of the day? Well, it all has to do with one very hungry queen. It was the year 1840, and Queen Victoria's royal tea time had become, well, boring. You see, for centuries, tea in England was mainly drunk in the afternoon after lunch. And while there were usually some biscuits or toast soldiers alongside it, the meal itself was substantial enough that the Queen didn't feel the need to have anything more substantial until dinner at 8 p.m. But by the 1840s, the traditional 3 p.m. lunch had evolved into a much lighter meal. And so the Queen found herself peckish again before the evening meal. So she decided to hold a grand tea party every day at 4 p.m., complete with fancy cakes and pastries. This became known as afternoon tea, but why did she pick 4 p.m.? Well, it turns out there was a very scientific reason behind the timing. You see, since the Industrial Revolution, factories had been switching to a two-shift system where workers would start at 6 a.m. work until 2 p.m., then be replaced by another set of workers who would start at 2 p.m. and finish at 8 p.m. This meant that for the first time in history, there was a large group of people who were free between 2 p.m. and 4 p.m. And these people, mostly women, had plenty of time to kill before they had to get home for dinner. Afternoon tea provided the perfect activity to fill this gap in their schedule. It gave them a chance to leave their homes, dress up, and socialize over a nice cup of tea and some delicious snacks. News of the Queen's lovely tea parties spread among the upper classes, and soon everyone was having afternoon tea, including the famous writer Charles Dickens. In fact, he even wrote an entire story about afternoon tea in his book, A Christmas Carol. By the 1860s, afternoon tea was so popular that it started to be served in public places like hotels, restaurants, and railway stations. This made it possible for people from all walks of life to enjoy a spot of tea together, strengthening a sense of community and belonging. However, as the century wore on, afternoon tea began to fall out of fashion. The Queen's original vision had been to create a more civilized way of enjoying tea, but people began to abuse the custom, turning it into a gluttonous affair with dozens of courses and 18 different types of tea. But the tradition was saved when it was adopted for the masses. Instead of being an extravagant, expensive event, afternoon tea can now be enjoyed by anyone for a reasonable price. This new version of afternoon tea only had 4 courses and was served with plain tea or coffee, but it was delicious nonetheless. Today, afternoon tea is still going strong. In fact, it is considered a quintessentially British tradition and is loved by tourists and locals alike. Places like Harrods and the Ritz still serve traditional afternoon tea, while newer establishments add their own creative twists to the classic menu. Whether you like your tea and sandwiches or your tea and cake, there is no wrong way to enjoy this beloved British custom. So next time you find yourself in England, why not take a break from sightseeing and have a cuppa? You can thank us later. Now check out Did You Know That? Or watch this video instead.